All right, so
we'll get
we are live now. So this kind of stemmed out of a conversation that came out of a CTE event, a couple months ago that talked about Mendeley, talked about this is something that we teach our juniors and seniors in our research methods class, and by and large, every time they are exposed to it, they say, why don't we have this sooner? Why are we not exposed to this sooner? I could have had 2-3 years of paper writing that would have been made so much easier by this. And then there's faculty who maybe have heard of it but don't know quite how to use it, and to kind of see all that you're able to do with it can be a great service. So in the handout that you guys have, the first sheet is just an informational sheet that's put out by Mendeley. I'm not going to go really through it, except I did organize kind of my talk for today thinking about these concepts of organizing a library, using it to write papers, how you can use it in collaborative projects, and basically how you can use it to inform and kind of discover new research. I kind of equate it to Netflix, kind of seeing what you watch and then informing you on other things that you might be interested in watching, but in kind of in a scholarly way. So again, the next page that you have on your handout here basically kind of walks through what I'm going to talk about today. So again, the title of the talk was Give Me 45 Minutes of Yours, and I hope I'll be able to save hours of yours. So particularly when it comes to thinking about writing and creating citations and bibliographies, which I think students by and large hate doing. And they refuse to edit a paper properly if it means moving paragraphs, because then that means they need to rework their bibliography, and they're not interested in doing that. Please come have a seat. So we might need a couple more handouts.
Already have them.
Perfect.
Please help yourselves to lunch.
So we're just getting started here, and I'm just going to kind of walk through how do we make this library. So I'm going to kind of show a couple of things with creating a library, and then I'm going to pull up kind of a sample document it's from a paper that I had. So I basically took the first 2 paragraphs from the paper and I pulled out the references, and then I'm going to show you how you put them in, how you can reformat them, and so forth. So if anybody had a computer, I do have all of these materials available on a jump drive if you wanted to kind of play and practice yourself, or we can just kind of watch, and then we'll probably have time afterwards if you wanted to play yourself. And so don't hesitate, ask questions, interrupt me as we're kind of going along here if there's things that you'd like to ask. So again, the first thing I want to do is kind of show you how to create a library. So there's two things, and this was part of the email that got sent out, kind of this getting started part. You have to have a Mendeley account, and it's free, so you can kind of set up your online account. And then if you want to be able to use this and integrate with your writing, there's a couple of little widgets that you need to download and install. Mendeley Desktop is useful because it more easily integrates. You don't have to worry about internet access. And then there's a citation manager which integrates with Word. And then there's a web importer. So I'll show you can download it for whatever browser you're interested in. And then it creates a little shortcut on your web browser that I'll show you how that works when we're kind of looking at our references. So again, I'm going to open up and kind of show you these. So this is the Mendeley Desktop. So I basically dumped all of my references so it wouldn't be too cluttered. So these are just a few select publications. We're going to put in some that were used for the sample document that I have. So this is the desktop version. And then again, I'm going to open up and log into my cloud version. And what's really neat about these is they do talk to one another. So whatever you do in the cloud space, when you sync with your desktop version, it will kind of sync with them, and vice versa. So you don't need to worry about there kind of being multiple forms. So again, reading through this little library creation, there's many ways to create references within your library, and we're going to cover a lot of them today. Some people like to keep one giant reference library with all of their references. Others like to organize them by category, maybe for each publication that you write. It's up to however people like to organize their desk in real space, if you will. So again, I'll show you a couple different ways to do this. There are ways to create folders where you can have different research projects that might have different kinds of scholarly works. Again, regardless of how you do it, there's 3 main ways to create your library. If you already have PDF files, so to let you know, if this is new and you're like, oh my gosh, I sort of have things electronically because I have a desktop full of PDF files. Oh, I don't want to have to worry about finding all the citations for these. I'm going to show you how easy it is to just literally you drag and drop these into your web space here, and it automatically creates the citation for it. So I have a sample document that will have 12 references that we'll put in. I'm going to put 11 of them in this way because it's going to be the fastest way to do that. And then I'm going to talk about Google Scholar. So just by a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Google Scholar? So if you're not, I'm going to show you some amazing things that Google Scholar can do. It's, I think, one of the best search engines out there for looking for scholarly works. So again, this is the, and I'm going to go through some of these tabs that are up on top here. When you first open Mendeley, it has a feed, which is not unlike a Facebook feed or lots of other kind of social sites, but it's scholarly. So it kind of will show you maybe some new things that have happened. If there's people that it thinks you should follow based on stuff that's interesting to you, it will kind of show that. So I'm going to mainly focus on the library tab here. And again, this has the same information. I'm going to toggle back here to my desktop version, has the same references that are there. So again, you can directly add PDF files. So again, if you already have a PDF of an article, you can simply add it. In either the desktop or the web version, there's this little tab here that's up in the add section, so you can add a document. And what's really neat about this is it doesn't have to be primary literature. I have a collaborative research group with researchers from across the country, and there's 15 of us, and we use this as a way to kind of have and share all of our resources. It can be literature, but it can be a Word document. So it's not unlike Google Docs or other things like that that just allow you to share documents. If you want to drag and drop, though, you can't really do that with the desktop version. Here again is the add for add files, add folders, stuff like that. But the drag and drop function really comes with the cloud version of this. So I'm going to go to, I've got a folder here that has the 12 references that we're going to utilize here. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to take 11 of them and I'm going to drop them into my cloud space. So, and my window up that we're seeing there is a little bit narrower than what I see on my computer here. So I'll try to make sure that you guys can see stuff there. So if I go to my cloud space here, I literally can just take and I can drag these over here, and it'll take a little bit to do it, but it's lit, and you can see that the names of my PDF files are just one and like the author name and year. But what ends up happening is it puts all of the references in there. Let me see if I can, well, I apologize, that's really small to see, but I think you see the intent of it. It lists all of the citation information that's right there. And if I go back to my desktop one, you can see that we don't see them here right now, but if I click this sync button up here, what'll happen is it will pull all of those from the cloud space, so then they're there. So unless you manually kind of tell it to sync, it won't pull all of those there. But what's really neat is you can see that it's pulling in all of these PDF files because I have them. So right now I've got 12 of the references that I need. And this is tough. It's really hard. We can't see this stuff that's over here. Do you know, is there a way, Joanne? We've had this problem before. Is it something in my...
Yeah, if you can look at your settings.
My settings. So maybe arrangement, color. I don't think, it's not color.
No.
So here is display. Maybe do I say scaled?
Yeah.
Where do I go? More space. Aha,
There you go.
there we go. All right. So now we're good. So everybody can see everything here, but it's unfortunately insanely small. So hopefully you'll kind of get the picture of what's going on. Oh, I can't make it too big there. So I can't make it as big as my desktop space is. But what's really neat, and this is available in your desktop version, there's a little thing over here that says View Research Catalog Entry for this paper. So if I click on this, it'll go back to my cloud space, but it kind of pulls up this information within Mendeley. And what's kind of neat is it shows all the different authors. And if there's an author that's part of Mendeley, it'll be hyperlinked. So you can say, hey, I want to follow them. But it shows some really neat things that are available through Scopus and Science Direct, and I'll kind of highlight some of those in a minute. But it shows how many Mendeley readers are looking at this document. It shows how many people have cited this article. Those are some of the things that I'll show you are also available in Google Scholar. But you can get some really neat information that's kind of available through Mendeley. So right now I've got in my library, whether it's my digital library or my desktop one, I've got all of my references but one that I'm going to show you in my sample document. So is everybody good kind of with me so far? So again, if you already have a whole bunch of PDFs, it's easy to create this library. Literally just drag them in there. Or if you're just starting to do something, I'm going to show you the next way that you can search. But before I move on, does anyone have any questions?
Where does it? This is going to be a really good question. So this is taking PDFs that are discrete papers and taking that information. So it's taking that bibliographic information.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. How does it do that if it's only a chunk of the original? Like if you're taking a PDF that's only a chunk.
I don't know. I would have to kind of, trial and error, figure out what happens. Again, if you've got the full PDF, it's got, all those little tags that allow it to pull, or it just, I don't know enough about creating software to do this, but I think it has ways that it will just recognize that this is the author line. But there's also places when you look at stuff, and again, this has to be in the desktop version where you can see this. There's this little section here, and this is really small, I know. It says these details need reviewing. You can mark them as correct or search the catalog. So for example, there's something that's missing. You can say search, and it'll search in the Mendeley catalog, and maybe it'll find. So maybe if you have part of an article, it'll find, oh, that matches up with this other one. I don't know the answer, but you'll see this search option that's there on your desktop, and it might be able to find the rest of the article and then kind of associate the correct citation information from it. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to open up a new kind of web browser here, and again, if you're not familiar with Google Scholar, I just want to show you how much you can sort of geek out with Google Scholar, because it's absolutely amazing, and I want to make sure you guys know some of the bells and whistles that are with it. So the last page that you have here just kind of has some information about Google Scholar. Again, I find it to be the most comprehensive because my area of research tends to span pedagogy and environmental science and straight biochemistry, maybe some medicinal stuff. So having kind of a narrow, library of medicine search engine might not, find everything that I need to find. So Google Scholar, by and large, has always found kind of the most of what I need to find. So somebody, give me a topic that we'd like to search for. We'll search for this specific article that I want to find in a minute, but I just kind of want to show you some things. So an area of research that somebody does that's not mine.
Vector design.
Vector design.
VCTLR.
Okay, so when we do this, again, what comes up, and I'm going to kind of make this bigger here so that you can see. So papers come up, and apologies if you're very familiar with Google Scholar, but I want to make sure if you're not that you can kind of see some of the neat things that you can do with Google Scholar. And I want to make sure I see my stuff on the left there. All right, so you can kind of change the time frame that you'll see things, because right now there's over 4 million results, Jody. So that's a lot to look at.
And they're cross-referenced with science versus art.
Right. So it's everything. So you can narrow down by range. Again, maybe we get rid of patents, and that gets rid of a couple, but maybe not too much. But one of the neat things is when I'm looking for articles, particularly if I'm doing something new, I look at this cited by. Because if there's a large number of people that are citing an article, that's probably indicative that it's kind of a seminal paper in the field. Again, putting in vector design might be very, very broad, so we might not find exactly what we want. But you can kind of sort through and start finding kind of a paper. So you're talking about vector design in art. And again, this is going to be, we're seeing a lot of science stuff.
You can also try
putting vector design
Mm-hmm.
in quotes.
Okay, so that's true because vectors, that's a very good
So then
point with
it's finding
searching.
the exact phrase vector design rather than just the two words.
Yep. And again, we're seeing a lot, and I don't know, maybe it's biased a little bit because I'm always doing science searches.
That's fine. I had no idea that it was going to come up.
Yeah, something specific, because even vector and design are specific to science. You know, they have relevance to science.
And then there's other phrases you need to try too, where sometimes people might call it vector art.
So we can add art.
No, I mean vector art, not vector design.
Oh.
Vector art.
Change it to vector art and see if that finds anything. Well, if we don't have too much luck here. All right, we're better. 951. There we go. Stylized vector art from 3D models with region support. So again, I start by kind of going through here and I say, how many times has an article been cited? And clearly if it's something that just came out, it might not have a lot of citations. But that's a neat thing to kind of say, you know what, somebody finds this important because it's been cited multiple times. So let's just take this first one, cited by 18. And what's really cool, if you click on the cited by 18, it will take you to a list of the 18 references that have cited this. So for example, if this is a 2008 article, that might not be as current as you're looking for. So if you click on this, then you might see some more recent articles that have come out. You know, here's one from 2014 that might be more relevant to what you're looking at. So, and again, beyond that, you can have Google say articles that are related to it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight what I'll do when I want to pull a reference. So really super small up here, but right up at top, oh, you can't even see this. Let me move this over. I've got up in the corner here, let me blow this up. No, I can't blow that up. I can't blow my toolbar up. Right up here, it's a little Mendeley icon. Okay, but that's a little widget that you integrate with whatever browser, and on the link that I provided on that first page, when you go to download it, you pick whether it's Google Chrome, whether it's Mozilla, whether it's...
down yesterday.
What's that?
That was down.
Oh, was it?
The third.
Oh, the third one.
link, the one that does the plugin.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was.
I had some problems with Mendeley yesterday too because I was trying to create a group that I was going to add Joanne to, and it kept telling me I couldn't invite people. So I don't know if something was weird with it.
Yeah.
So they might be doing some work. But this little widget is really cool. So if I click on this, what it'll do is it will take whatever it sees in this page and it lists all the citations for them. So you can either select all of them, or you can then just kind of read through here and pick the ones that you're interested in. And then if you click on those and then say save whatever you're doing, it will put those into your Mendeley library. So again, if you're just starting to do a search, you can do it that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the specific reference that I'm looking for, which is my 12th reference. So I'm going to look up my paper here. This paper is called Using Distal Site Mutations and Allosteric Inhibition to Tune, Extend, and Narrow the Useful Dynamic Range of Aptamer-Based Sensors. So, and I'm glad you brought up, Karen, you know, the idea with quotes, because that's really important. If you are looking for a specific paper that you just kind of want to add to your library. So I'm going to say distal site mutations and allosteric inhibition. And there's the article that I'm interested in. Again, I could still play around with the cited by or related articles, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and it's going to take me right now to the place where I could get this reference. But again, I'm going to click up here in my little Mendeley widget, and it gives me this information. So I'm going to say I want to save this. And what's really neat here, see there's a little link here that says download PDFs if available. And this is super small text, apologize for that. But what this will do too is if there's a freely available PDF for the reference that you're looking for, it'll automatically pull it into your Mendeley library. So I'm going to say save for this. And then again, if I go over to, I'll have to sync my Mendeley desktop. But then that last one just came up here using distal site mutation, so that one came up there. So I've got all 12 of my references that I want to have now. And so now I'm ready to write and insert those citations into my, Word document that I've written. Question?
it's good that if it finds the free full text for things, it'll give it to you. But is that working in conjunction with Google Scholar, or is it working through Mendeley itself? Because we have the
Sure.
Hammerville Library. We have some integration with Google Scholar. So
Okay.
on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see some links that say full text at Mercyhurst.
Yes.
That works from on campus because it automatically detected that you're on campus.
Got
However, when you're off campus and you're not on the campus network or on your phone or something, you need to actually go into the options for Google Scholar and look under library links and put on Mercyhurst or any other libraries to which you have access in order
Got
to
it.
get those to appear in the results. However, when Mendeley brings in full text for things, I don't know if they have an ability to integrate with our holdings or not, but if that's possible, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm not certain. I happened to pick one that was an open access journal, so I knew it was available already.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested in finding that out. So maybe that's something, if you play around with this afterwards, you know, I'd be interested, and probably people here would be interested in knowing how well that integrates just with, you know, our access.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Other questions? All right. So let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to mention about Google Scholar. Again, one of the things I just love about Google Scholar is the ability to, and I remind my students, I'm not that old, but this was not available when I was in grad school, right? You did not have the ability to do electronic searching the way that you do. And doing a literature search is really revolutionized, because if you find, like I said, a really cool paper, or you have a paper that you've been looking at for 5 years and you want to know, is there anything more current? All you need to do is put it in Google Scholar, check who cited it, and those are other people who have published work since then that found that paper important too. Because in science, we all know that if someone else publishes something first, you're not going to be able to publish that same research on it, right? So you have to find out if this work has already been done. And there's no journal of science of stuff that didn't work, which is unfortunate. But you can find out if someone else has worked on that specific idea that you have, and then whether or not what you're doing is truly novel. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up my Word document here. Let's see. So it's the sample writing, and so it's just going to open up in Word, and this is just the first 2 paragraphs from a publication. And you know, one of the things, oh, I can't open it that wide, sorry. Let's make it so that you're able to see everything here. One of the things that I encourage my students to do, that I do myself, is as I'm writing, if I'm writing something and I'm like, either I know that needs a citation, or I'm like remembering that, oh, that's so-and-so's work, I just put little REF in parentheses for myself. And that reminds me to go back and add my citations in. So there's my little markers that are kind of in here. Let's see, can we make this be a little bit bigger? Let's try about like 300. Oops. All right, that's a little bit bigger, but unfortunately, it's beyond the scope. All right, sorry. We're going to have to try to do page width here, and it's going to be a little bit small to see there. All right, so one of the things you're going to want to look for, and this is super small up here, apologies. When you install that widget for Word, you might have to close Word and then make sure to reopen it so it fully installs. You should see a toolbar up here. And up on the left-hand side here, it says Insert or Edit Citation, and then there's an Insert Bibliography. And then there's also this refresh button. Those are the 3 buttons that you'll use kind of most frequently. But what I'm going to do here is just kind of start putting in my references. And I'm going to cheat because I have my paper here, so I'm going to have to go back and forth. Joanne, maybe you can help me out here. So when I see something here, tell me which references it is. Like this is references 1 through 4, just to kind of make this go a little bit more quickly. So the first section I see here that has references, I think it ends characterized only in the past decade. Is that where?
5 and 6.
That's 5 and 6. So there's, oh, something before. So for previous systems in vitro.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to delete this, and what I want to do is insert citations there. Okay. So, and we might need to, Joanne, flip to the back page here where you see where those references are.
Yep.
And then, actually I'll have that page open and you just tell me it's 1 through 4 and I'm going to look up just the author names. You can look it up by keyword, you can look it up by a lot of things. So I'm going to want 4 references that are here. So I'm going to go up to my insert or edit citation and a window comes up here where I can type and it's communicating with my library. So I'm going to type, my first reference is Porchetta. And it shows me all of the references that I have that are by Porchetta, and I can see it says Rational Design of Allosteric Inhibitors. So it's that reference. Okay, so now I'm going to do the second one, and I'm going to type in SOH. That's one of the author's names. So you can put that in. I choose author names because those tend to sometimes be a little bit more specific than a keyword. But I'll put in a keyword for the next one. I'm going to put in biosensor. And it pulls up any reference in my library that has the word biosensor. This one is going to be structure switching biosensors, inspired by nature. And then the fourth reference is, I'm going to type in thermodynamic. And this is thermodynamic basis for engineering high affinity. So I've got those 4 references that are in there. So what I'm going to do is click OK. Now what's going to happen is it kind of gets to this middle point here where it's not formatting my bibliography yet, but it's kind of putting placeholders in there that I've got 4 references that I want there. All right, so bear with me while I put in these next ones. The next ones, Joanne, are 5 and 6. Correct. After a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put in, that is a Silverman reference, and then a Roth reference. Right, so that's 5 and 6. So my next
It looks
one,
like the end of the second paragraph, reviewed in 3.
reviewed in 3. So I'm going to go back, and my third reference was again that inspired by nature one. Just one reference there. All right, where's my next one?
Inherently different, K, whatever values. It's number
Yep.
7.
It's number 7. All right, so insert. Number 7 is Drabovich. Okay.
Next line is manipulate KS. That's
Okay.
number 8.
8. This is thermodynamic basis for the optimization. Okay. And
At the
then
end of that paragraph, 9 through 12.
9 through 12. All right. So apologies. I was trying to figure out, I'm like, do I do some of these? So I said it's not going to take too long, especially if I have someone helping me out here. All right. So this is allosterically tunable. 10 is engineering biosensors with extended Kang reference, and then distal site. All right. So now I've got all of my references put in here. So to kind of go back where we are on our sheet here. Oh, let me just highlight too, we went through the online search engine. There are ways to kind of create a new reference just by typing. I tend to try to avoid that because human error can kind of come in. You misspell somebody's name, you know, all of that. But you might have something, whether it's a personal communication or some other type of unique reference that you might need to type it in yourself. So again, moving to this last page here, we opened up our Word document, we've inserted our reference, and now we're ready to make our bibliography. And I've said this twice here because it's really important. When you click the Insert Bibliography, it's going to put it wherever your cursor is. So make sure you put your cursor where you want your bibliography. Because if I leave it where it is, well, right now it's at the end. But if you were in the middle of a paragraph, it will split up your words and put it there. So put it wherever you'd like it. And I'm going to say Insert Bibliography. Again, really small to see up here, but there's a pull-down menu that has different bibliographic formats. So, for example, if you wanted APA style, I could click APA, and it automatically formatted all those references. And again, if I click down here, I can say insert my bibliography, and it makes my bibliography in that format. So what's really cool about this is if I want to change the style, again, I can come here. Nature is a very popular journal in science. I can say format it like that, and it immediately reformats them. That's a numerical format, and then it reformats my bibliography. You can, isn't it amazing, right? So you can also edit. So let's say I decided, you know what, this sentence right here, it really belongs in the beginning, right? And students refuse to edit because then it means, especially if they have a numerical, then they have to reorder their bibliography, right? So all you need to do if you move a paragraph is then, again, just hit this refresh button, and it automatically fixes all your references and updates your bibliography. So super cool. And yeah, I have those aha moments when the students see this and they're like, why didn't I have this as a freshman? Because it's not science specific, it's writing specific. So whether it's for an English paper, a history paper, a science paper, everybody has to do bibliographies. So it's a really, really easy way. And then there's the whole aspect of you've got everything organized in a digital library. You can link your PDF files to it. You know, it's really, really great. So questions on this? You're welcome. All right, so I have a couple of other things I want to show you. But again, the three things that you'll use from that menu are the insert or edit citations, the insert bibliography, making sure you have your cursor where you want your bibliography. And then if you move things around, hit refresh, and that'll update your bibliography. If you change the style, like again, if we go to National Library of Medicine, it automatically kind of updates. That's an automatic thing. If you move things around, you do need to hit refresh. The other things I just kind of want to highlight, which are more fun sort of things, are within Mendeley here. So let me move my browser here so we can see everything. So again, when you first kind of log in, you're going to get to your kind of main feed, which is not like a Facebook feed or other things, where it just kind of shows things that it thinks would be of interest to you. We talked about the library tab, but I want to go through kind of a couple of these other ones because I think they're interesting. The suggest one is sort of interesting. So based on things that you've either recently put in your library and so forth, it searches the Mendeley library and it finds other articles that it thinks you might find interesting reading. And again, you can see with some of these that it'll show you how many people within Mendeley are also reading this. You can choose if other authors are part of Mendeley, you can follow them. So anytime they publish a new paper, they might add something to their library, you'll be notified. Hey, this person that you follow added this to their library. Do you think it might be interesting to read? The stats thing is pretty cool too. Kind of from a personal, so this is looking at the publications that I have that are within Scopus. So it's not all of my publications, but the 5 that I have that are within Scopus, it kind of shows some stats on them. So it shows how many people have read or viewed these articles within Mendeley or just within Science Direct. So it's kind of one of those things that sometimes people will look at and say, well, how important is what you're doing? And they'll use kind of these metrics as, well, hey, you know, so many people were reading this article. And then so it lists some of these articles down there, and you can see, you know, how many people have viewed or read some of these articles. I found this challenging though because I'm thinking it's missing some of them because with getting married and changing my name, I don't know if it's recognizing that 3 different versions of my name are all the same person. So I'm trying to sort out how to communicate with Scopus and say Diegelman, Parenti, and Parenti are all the same person, even though I've published under all 3. The other couple of things I just kind of want to show you are this groups one. So again, I tried to create one for Mercyhurst Teaching because I thought this would be a really cool place that anyone who does CTE stuff, we find interesting articles, we can have a collaborative workspace that we can put stuff in. So I tried to invite, so I'll try this again now. So Joanne, it's J, see if it's working now, because I tried to invite. Aha, I sent them an email this morning. So you should get an email now that invites you to join Mendeley. And since you are a Mendeley member, you can join this. Again, Mendeley's free, but again, I have, the other group that I have is this collaborative workspace for this group of researchers that are all working on this collaborative research project over about 15 institutions. So it's a really great place for us to share our research. It's a little bit different from just kind of throwing things on Google Scholar or Google Drive, thank you, just kind of having a Google space that we just kind of collaborate stuff. We do use Basecamp with this group because that's another great space to kind of have discussion threads and so forth, but we have this group here. And I think that was kind of the intent of what I wanted to sort of share with you. Again, this discovery thing gets to this suggest tab where it kind of shows different things that you might find interesting to read, different people that it suggests you might find interesting to follow. So in some ways it's not unlike LinkedIn. I don't know how many of you are LinkedIn members, where it will allow you to connect with people who are kind of in your scholarly space. So it wasn't even 45 minutes of your time, and hopefully I have saved you hours of yours. Questions?
This is actually really interesting, and I would consider the idea of replacing Zotero with this as our suggested bibliographic citation manager. However, the reason why you keep on hearing all these students saying, "Why didn't I learn about this when I was a freshman?" was because in their comp classes, they're being taught how to do it the way that you were taught to add, by learning how to actually add, rather than learning how to use a calculator when you're 2. So they have to learn the hard way before they earn the right to have a machine do it for them, partially because the machine-generated citations are not always going to be right.
Sure.
And they need to know what
That's a
to
good
do
point.
in
It's
order
a very
to
good
fix
point.
those.
Right.
But then after that, they can go ahead and do whatever they want. But I often tell students that, there's these bibliographic citation managers out there. Some of them are free, some of them are not. There's EndNote, and there's Zotero, and there's, and I think there was one that we had a subscription to,
Okay.
Institutionally a while ago. But we don't actually teach them how to use them. We just kind of tell them that they're available, and that if it's their preference, they can use them.
Sure.
Additionally, some of our databases have a bibliographic export file, which I assume this knows how to read, right?
Yes, you can import things that way. But again, with Google Scholar, and this is how some students I think know how to do things. So let's say we just looked up.
Well,
something.
searching our databases is different than
Sure.
searching Google Scholar, because
Sure.
it only searches things they actually might have access to, as well as some citations
Right.
that might not be in Google Scholar.
But a lot of places will have a way that it will show you the citation, and then you literally can just copy and paste it. So for a reference, you can click a citation link, and it'll pull up, APA format, and they know how to do that so that they can copy and paste. But then that still means that they often don't want to edit a paper because then they need to rework their bibliography. And it's sad that I hear the hours that they'll spend. So little side story here. I was an EndNote person for probably 2 decades here before I recently switched to Mendeley. But it started because I spent about 2 hours in my graduate advisor's office. We were working on a paper that we were editing. And literally, almost like Joanne and I were doing here, he sat there with our edits, and we had to make sure that all of the references matched up. So if we inserted a new sentence, that meant each one had to increase by 1 number. And and at the time, my mother-in-law had showed me EndNote when I was starting graduate school. And it took it took a lot, but I said to my advisor, I said, I want to show you a program. But it had taken me sitting in his office for an hour hours trying to reformat this paper. I was like, we can't do this. There's a better way. There's a better way.
Mendeley has an interesting comparison chart of itself versus EndNote versus
Yes.
Zotero. This is obviously biased, but
Yes.
but it is on their site there. You can look at the comparison chart. If you want a feature-to-feature comparison.
I find it to just visually be very, very user-friendly, very nice to look at. It doesn't look clunky. It's very intuitive. In some ways, I think of it like with student planning with our students versus WebAdvisor. For those of you who are familiar with both of those platforms, it just looks nice to look at. It's easy to look at. It's very intuitive. The whole drag and drop feature is incredible. That's how things work online now. So, other questions? I hope I have created some Mendeley converts if you weren't already a Mendeley user.
With the Mendeley feature, I mean, if you find something that's not on Google Scholar, is it easy to use those that information? I use a lot of non-standard materials, like archival materials and stuff like that. That all has to be inserted manually, but I also use a lot of Russian library sources that I've never used Google Scholar for my foreign language sources.
And again, that might not be the best source for you, but do you have you used an electronic?
Yeah, I mean, I've used Zotero, but I can do it through, part of it was I came from a really huge library, so I could often just go through their system, and Zotero would take I could just use their system as a portal. And
What would be really neat? So try, once you have this little widget up in your browser, wherever you are, whatever electronic, page you might be at, just try clicking on that and see if it recognizes that, hey, this is, nothing, or this is a reference material, and then you can try importing it that way. But it's again, even when I used EndNote for years and years, it was like, okay, we had a few steps because we'd have to kind of export or download the citation file, and then we'd have to import that, one at a time, kind of into EndNote. And this kind of eliminates that by directly integrating with your browser, which I don't believe EndNote does, or at least the version that I had.
I mean, I'm trying to remember when I first started out, doing WorldCat searches and having exportable information, and then taking it from taking those citations that were generated from.
So this is nice to have it directly from wherever you're searching. Click on that little Mendeley and find the reference citation and import it for me. So I'd be curious to find out from your end, because again, this is, I wouldn't say it's biased towards science, but it's heavily used by people in the science community. But so whatever other kind of reference sources you have or where you go, I'm curious to find out how well it integrates with those in terms of pulling in your references.
Yeah, I am aware that EndNote did have an ability to communicate with the library's catalog using some kind of communication standard in between them. And that there was a way to get that to work. Although it was very clunky, because I remember a long, long time ago trying to help a patron who said, my super huge school has this thing that they can do with EndNote, and your school doesn't have the EndNote thing, so how do I use this? So I spent hours trying to get her thing to work, but it wouldn't, because we didn't have what her school had, which was a institutional subscription to EndNote. So we couldn't get it to work that way.
Got it.
EBSCO Discovery, or the Search Everything box on our homepage, does have the ability to search our print materials, and that should be able to provide a downloadable citation file with the book's information in it to make a citation from.
Yeah, and I've definitely used these tools before.
But I think I'm very interested to find out from other disciplines, how well does this work for you, or tips or tricks that you might have to have it work well.
I noticed that Mendeley has an import feature from Zotero, so if you want to work with both, or if you were working with one and want to try the other.
And you're right, they have done their best to make it as easy as possible for people to transition from another platform. So if there's somebody who has been a 2-decade-long EndNote user or Zotero user, don't worry. It's a single click to kind of get everything over with Mendeley. Oh, and the one other thing I was going to mention, we started talking about this earlier, is I've got 2 groups here, and you can't see because the text is so small. The one that of my collaborators is a private group. So, and this is where it kind of gets into, this is a free service. They do have paid services, and the paid services largely come if you want to have more than one private group. Because anything, if you have a group and anything that you put up here kind of becomes Mendeley property. So, so if you have, you know, stuff that you're sharing that's proprietary, or if you're doing research collaborations and you don't want it to be available publicly to the Mendeley community, you want to have a private group. You're only allowed to have one private group as a free kind of basic subscriber. We have workarounds with that because what we'll do is each one of us will be the owner of a private group and then invite everybody else. So there's kind of workarounds with that. But again, the Mercyhurst one I made public because I don't think we're going to be putting anything in there that we wouldn't mind sharing with everybody else. But that is a way that they get you to subscribe and pay a little bit, is if you are in a group that you want to have multiple private groups and so forth, you'd need to pay for that or figure out the tricks to work around it. Nope, this is all free. Yep. Working around the limitations. And I only have the 2 work groups here, but there's other people who are part of this work group. That's why I'm the owner of this group, because a lot of other people are already owners of other groups, but none of us are paying subscriptions for it. All right, well, I encourage you guys, if you start trying to integrate it and then you find yourself like having questions or so forth, platform specific, you know, I'm happy to sit around for a little bit if you want to play and see how it works. But happy Mendeley.
And if people want to play here, there are 2 laptops